Do you ever feel like there's something underneath the surface that you can't quite resolve? It's like you know it's there, it feels a little bit stuck, but you just can't quite put your finger on it. You keep trying to overcome it or get rid of it, and you just feel like you're not completely free yet. Do you love God but still feel anxious or overwhelmed? Have people or experiences shaken your ability to trust? Have you tried to pray harder, push through, or think differently, but still feel stuck? Would you like to finally be able to calm your mind and emotions? I've been there. I struggled for years with anxiety, intrusive thoughts, and feeling like I was failing spiritually when I wasn't actually at fault at all. I was simply experiencing the effects of trauma in my nervous system. Now, as a licensed professional counselor and certified EMDR therapist, I help other Christian women to understand and process what's happening to them so that they can experience the healing that Jesus provides through good therapy. That can be a miracle too. Welcome to Trauma Healing for Christian Women. I'm Michelle Croyle, and I'm here to tell you that you're not failing, you're wounded, and wounds can heal. So grab your favorite beverage, a notebook and pen, and take a deep, relaxing breath because you're about to be refreshed. Let's get started. Welcome back to Trauma Healing for Christian Women. I'm going to give you 6 things today that explain why you can't just move on and get unstuck already. So let's start with the nervous system. That's number 1. Your nervous system from before you were born, so from conception, your nervous system developed and it started tracking the information of your environment. It started to track your experiences. It started to track how your relationships make you feel. And from very early in life, your nervous system was already firing and wiring. It was trying to make sense of the world and help you to survive it. And so if as a child you didn't have good resources, meaning you didn't have adequate caregiving, or you didn't have emotional regulation or modeling from adults who could teach you what was helpful and what wasn't and how to approach things. And then you didn't have a big enough perspective because you weren't old enough to have a whole lot of history behind you that you could draw on, and you didn't have fully developed brain functioning yet because you're a child and or a teenager or a young 20-something. You know, our brains don't fully develop until our mid to late 20s, maybe even 30. So, if you didn't have that reasoning ability, you really didn't have a lot. And the more of those things that you didn't have, the harder it would be for you to be able to tell your nervous system, hey, nervous system, it's okay. You're interpreting this as threat, but everything's okay. They didn't mean that. Oh, yeah, you just needed more comfort. Oh, no, that's not a big deal. That's just a big scary dog, and he's behind a fence. Your brain can't do those things to self-soothe when it doesn't have the information. And your nervous system can't relax when it still feels on guard. So your nervous system may be running the whole show. In fact, it is running the whole show underneath your thoughts, underneath your experiences, even in the present day. Your nervous system is there trying to make sure you survive. It's not worried about being rational. It's not worried about making sense. It is worried about one thing and one thing only, and that is your survival. So in the past, when your nervous system tried to help you survive, right, it did it the best way it could with what it knew at the time. And maybe it didn't have what it needed to process the painful stuff in the way that you would now. And so your nervous system absorbed it. Or things may have just been too much for your nervous system, no matter what age you are or how developed you are. There are just things that are too overwhelming, too much, and we don't have enough resources to help ourselves deal with it. And so, for example, if someone made fun of you as a child, you may not have thought, man, that person is insecure and projecting, right? Instead, your system may have encoded, I'm faulty, something's wrong with me, or I'm not good enough. right? And then your system didn't just say that as a thought, it became something your body learned. So anytime that you were made fun of, maybe your body tensed up, maybe you started to shake, maybe you got anxious, maybe you started to cower and hide away. Right. And now, years later, you may not understand why you're afraid to speak up in groups, or why you feel anxious in social situations, or why you doubt yourself or overthink things anytime you have to talk to somebody. You may not even realize where it came from. That's because trauma and emotional wounds are not just remembered, they're stored in the nervous system. And so that's one reason why you may still feel stuck and not really know why, because you've tried all these things. You've tried to outthink it. You've tried to rationalize it. You've tried to use tools. You've tried to pray it away. And you're like, why am I not unstuck yet? It may be that your nervous system is still hanging on to things below the level of conscious awareness. The second thing that you may want to look at if you're trying to figure out how to get unstuck is your story, right? We all have a history. We all have a story. And it's not just what happened to us. It's not just what we've experienced, but it's the meaning that we've made of what happened to us. So think about this. If somebody was told that they are so fast, that they run like the wind. They're just so fast, right? And they're 5 years old and they're told that. One kid might take that and go, ooh, zoom, zoom, I'm like a superhero. I'm so fast. Another kid could take that to mean that people are staring at them and that there's something different about them because they're faster than all of the kids, and maybe they start to feel shame about it. And then they don't want to Zoom anymore because people will comment on it and it makes them self-conscious, right? So it's not really what happened in those types of circumstances. It's the meaning that was created with what happened. I remember when I was a kid, I was in dance classes and I had to go up on stage for a recital, and I didn't want to go because I knew that when I got up on stage, people laughed. And I remember my mom telling me at the time, honey, they're not laughing at you. They're laughing because you're cute. And I said, I don't want to be cute then. And I don't want to do it, right? I don't want to be laughed at because it doesn't matter why they're doing it. What mattered to me was it didn't feel good to be laughed at, right? And so that's why the story of what happens to us is important. The experiences, they tell part of the story, but they don't tell all of the story. Some of the story is how we interpreted it, how we felt at the time, how it impacted us, the meaning that was created when that experience happened. Now, there are things that are just tragic and traumatic and that we don't even have to worry about how we encoded it. Like, there is no way that it was a positive thing. And that's understandable too. But sometimes it's the meaning that we encoded. In fact, even with those really, really awful things, we may have encoded meaning about ourselves, such as we are powerless, or we are not good enough, or we should have done something different, or been something better, or can't protect ourselves, or whatever it is. And that's not truth. Maybe we did the best we could and it was safest not to fight back. Maybe we held our tongue because it wasn't going to get anywhere good if we told someone off, right? We can't say that we were powerless when what we were doing was choosing not to use our full power because it was more of a survival mechanism not to. It was safer not to. So there are many ways to look at things, but if you find that you're telling yourself a story and it makes you feel bad about yourself, it may be time to look at the meaning that you're telling yourself about things and see if that is completely accurate or not. It may not be fully true, and it may not be fully accurate. It's almost like you've been looking through a filter at your story your whole life. So if you've been interpreting yourself or other people or experiences through something that was formed a long time ago, and if you've been in that filter long enough, it may just start to look like reality and you might not even question it because it's been the filter you've looked through so long, but that's not necessarily the full, true picture. And so sometimes you just need help stepping outside of that lens to see another way that the meaning might be able to be seen, or to see what happened in a different way that gives you some freedom. We're not saying the bad didn't happen. We're not saying it felt great. We're not saying you're to blame. We're saying that sometimes the meaning that we put towards things is actually where the stuckness is, and that there might be another way to interpret data, such as, I am strong, I am powerful, I just restrained my power, or I restrained my voice because that wasn't a time where it was going to be used to my benefit. I might have gotten hurt more, right? Or something like that. So when we can kind of look at the story, challenge it, and then tell a more whole, true, well-rounded story, it might help give freedom. And that's where therapy can help, or journaling, reflection, kind of just looking at things through a different lens can be really, really powerful and many times very freeing. The third thing that might be helpful is to realize that sometimes where we get stuck is in our thoughts and emotions kind of colliding, right? It should be that I have a wonderful marriage, for instance, right? If someone's thinking that, and then they have a marriage where their husband's abusive or their wife is abusive, right? They might start thinking something's wrong with them. They might start thinking they're not good enough. They might start wondering what's wrong with how they pick people, or how they do relationships. But maybe what they need instead is to grieve what they don't have that they thought they should have, right? So grieving what you don't have, or what you didn't get that you really expected to have or thought you needed, that grieving is often a very important part that gets overlooked, right? You can feel bad about yourself for not having the marriage that you wanted. But if you have not done anything wrong, and it's a matter of you being emotionally or physically or verbally abused, it's not because there's a fault with you that you're being abused. It's that this person is choosing bad behaviors. They may need to get help, and you are actually stuck in the grief between what you anticipated and expected and hoped for and what you actually have. And so when you can grieve the loss of what you don't have or didn't get and comfort yourself because you're hurting, it's like you can then get your needs met. And so what was missing can now be gained. You can get comfort for the grief that you're experiencing. Same with things like emotional safety. If you weren't emotionally treated with respect, if you were told, oh, just get over it. Oh, why are you so emotional? Oh, don't be so dramatic, right? You may not have felt emotionally safe. But if instead you grieve the fact that you didn't have your emotions respected, that you were told that basically your emotions were dismissible, and you grieve that you didn't get what you needed, and instead you start saying things to yourself like, you know what, emotional safety is important to me, and so I will pay attention to my emotions. Or I will hang around people who respect the fact that I can be a full human being and have emotions and not be threatened by that. Or I have a right to be seen and understood by people, and I will notice myself and I will meet my needs, and then I will seek to be understood by myself and other people, and I will know that God sees me and understands me, right? Or if you didn't have protection, grieving the fact that those who should have protected you didn't, and then doing what you need to stand up for yourself, set appropriate boundaries, take effective actions or precautions to protect you, right? Whatever it is, to be able to grieve what others can't give you, rather than feeling like you have to keep trying to achieve it, recognize you can't get what others are not capable of giving from them, but you can get your needs met from God, from yourself, from other healthy, safe people who have it to give. And sometimes that grief is what we need to be able to move on and do so. Grieving what someone couldn't give you does not mean that you're not worthy of receiving what you need. It means that person didn't have the capacity, and that's very, very different. So when you grieve, you can get unstuck because you don't have to earn it or prove yourself or chase after something. You can notice, I need to get this need met somewhere, and it can actually be something that I can choose healthy actions to have it be realized. And that shift alone can be really freeing. Number 4 is this ability to learn new internal skills and tools that can really help. Now, sometimes we don't have the tools and skills we need. So if you never got evidence that you could say yes and no and it would be respected, or that you could stand up for yourself, or that you could be honest without getting backlash, right? You may not have the tools to effectively speak up for yourself, to set boundaries, to trust yourself, to self-soothe your emotions when they get to be overwhelming, to speak to yourself with compassion instead of criticism, right? If what was modeled for you growing up was a lot of critical stuff like, stop being like that, what's wrong with you, why can't you just, why aren't you, blah, 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 then that becomes your inner voice, and you might be doing that to yourself in your self-talk. And so when you notice how you talk and you intentionally try new, different tools, like saying, no, that's not okay with me, or trusting yourself to go, I'm not feeling safe in this relationship, or being able to say, you know what, I'm anxious right now, and I think I'm going to take some time to just do some deep breaths and notice what I need to be safe, or to speak to myself kindly instead of with criticism, and have that grace and compassion for myself. These new tools can help you to get unstuck. So if you're currently second-guessing yourself or avoiding conflict, feeling guilty for having needs, shaming yourself for your emotions, healing might be sitting with your emotions instead of avoiding them, talking to yourself with kindness instead of that criticism, trusting your internal signals, and setting boundaries, knowing you're not doing anything wrong and have nothing to feel guilty about. It might take practice, but tools and skills can become second nature. And if you need them, therapy can help. You can get that from a good therapist. You can get that from self-help books. You can get that from biblical principles. You can pray about it. You can ask people that you admire. If you have friends who handle themselves well in areas that you don't feel as confident in, you can ask them for some tips and insight as to how they think of things, and maybe they can help give you some of those tools as well. So instead of dismissing yourself, notice your needs and then employ the skills or the tools that you need. And if you don't have them, go after them. Number 5 is that we need safe relationships to have corrective experiences. So we do this thing where we mind read and we kind of anticipate. Our brains try to predict. They like to do equations like, okay, well, this happened and this happened. That must mean this is about to happen. And that's not always true, right? Sometimes our brains make mistakes, especially if we've been hurt or traumatized. They would rather make a wrong conclusion that keeps you safe and surviving than make a wrong conclusion and have it hurt you, right? So our brains naturally want to do the calculations that keep us safe and surviving. And so if we have historical experiences where this happened and then this happened and now we're in this and we think somebody's going to explode with us if we're going to tell the truth about what happened, then we're probably not ever going to want to speak up because we always got blasted before, and so our brain did the calculation shortcut for us. But when you get with a healthy person, and perhaps a healthy therapist, right, who when you tell them a strong feeling, they sit there and they go, oh, I hear you, tell me more about that. And you explain it, and they say something that validates your experience. Or you say to a friend, hey, when you said this, I felt this way. And instead of them blasting you, they go, oh my goodness, I am so sorry. How can I be better for you? How can I handle this better in the future? You get what's called a disconfirming experience. So what you thought you were going to get out of 1 + 1 = 2 actually might be something different. And you go, oh, so if I can have something that didn't turn out the way my brain predicted it and kept me from stepping into all of my empowerment and freedom, maybe I can replicate that instead. How would I do that? Maybe I get more healthy people in my life so that I get more healthy outcomes. I get more positive attention. I get more emotional connection. And so then you heal through safe relationships. I always say my husband helps everybody that I help because he loved me into healing. It's just true. When you are loved well, when you are respected well, when you can be seen and heard and respected in all of it. It doesn't mean anybody's going to be perfect but Jesus. But, when wounds from a friend can be trusted, when, like, if someone hurt you, they care that they hurt you and they apologize. And it wasn't malicious. It wasn't intentional. It was just human mistake or oversight. That's a lot different than somebody coming after you, tearing you down, treating you disrespectfully, minimizing your feelings and your thoughts, right? And so we want to get more of the healthy people, more of the corrective experiences, more of the relationships that actually are based in edification and iron sharpens iron and being understood. Again, doesn't mean they'll be perfect, but healing happens in safe relationships. And that's how the calculations in your brain begin to change. It's not just through knowing they can change, but through actually experiencing safety in the disconfirming experience, not getting blasted like you thought you would, and realizing, oh, if that could happen once, maybe I can find another person who is safe so that I don't get blasted again. What if that's everybody that I allow into my inner space? That everybody is a respectful person that I allow into my closest friend group. Imagine what could change, right? And so number 6 is to why you may feel stuck or not be able to get unstuck is that talking isn't always enough. So even if you have these safe relationships and you can get a different outcome and you can get someone who cares about you and who hears you and respects you and you're like, wow, this is great. And then you build up a whole team of them. That's amazing. And that is going to rewire your nervous system. But that doesn't mean that there isn't past wounding that still needs to be healed. And so sometimes people think, well, I'll just go to therapy and I'll do some talking about it and I'll feel better. But it doesn't work that way because talk comes from a different part of the brain than the part that had fight, flight, or freeze. And so talking isn't going to make your nervous system relax. Processing the tension in your nervous system, the muscle tightness, the way that you hold your breath, the way that your jaw clenches, the way that you just kind of brace whenever you think of certain things. Those types of things can be attended to in what's called somatic therapy. And that's where we pay attention to, hey, what are you noticing in this moment as you have that thought, as you notice that feeling in your body? What is your body doing? Do you notice any muscles getting tighter? Do you notice that your breathing got shallow? Does it feel like your heart is thumping out of your chest, right? That's why you may be stuck as well, is because you are trying to do healing in a logical way, in a top of your brain kind of way, rather than a body-based nervous system part of your brain kind of way, working from the bottom up, because there are different ways of looking at it. And the nervous system is that base level that when you attune to it first and you notice what it is saying with its tension, tightness, discomfort, feelings, emotions, and sit with that and learn to process that in safety, that can also have tremendous healing effects. And so that is another difference. You can't just talk and think your way out of a traumatized nervous system. You have to process it through the nervous system so it discharges that tension, discharges all of those things that are causing your body to stay in fight or flight or freeze. And you can't do that unless you're in a system where you feel safe to let down your guard. And that is why I offer EMDR trauma therapy intensives, because I know that it is too hard to open up all of your trauma stuff and come in and sit down for 50 minutes once a week and be able to allow your nervous system to feel safe enough to go deep and do the processing of that stuff that keeps you stuck. It's just impossible to do that in a 50-minute session where you know that you have to go pick up the kids and drive the car and get back to work and all of that. And so I've decided that the primary model I want to use is through therapy intensives, where I spend several hours with a client over the course of 1 to 3 days, where we go in after the targets that are those stuck points that keep getting you stuck. And if you would like some help with that, I would love to help you. If you want to know how to do that, you can go into the show notes and click the link there to schedule a free 15-minute consult with me. The content that you heard today is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not to replace professional therapy and is not to be considered a professional therapeutic relationship. If you would like to work with me, please reach out through the contact link in the show notes. I'd love to hear your story. And if you liked what you heard today and would like to share it with somebody or leave a rating and review, we greatly appreciate it so others can listen in too.